Alright, so this is how you extract the eggs from a hen. First you find this egg hole, you stick your knife in, and just slice up the middle, all the way to the throat. And then when you peel that back, there's all them eggs laying in there. So then I reach in, and at the top, I kind of grab onto that, and I just pull. And it's kind of connected by a skin in the back, so I just slide my fingers down that skin until I get all the way to the opposite end. Rip that out, and there's a skein. This one's already broke off the back side. You can see the skin here. I'm just going to peel that all the way up to the front. Reach under these organs here and pop these eggs off where they're connected. This is the hardest part up here, is where they're connected. And if they're really firm, you can get in there with a knife if you need to. And there I have 2 skeins ready to be cured. Okay, so there are 2 ways you can cure the skeins. You can cure the whole skein and then cut it up as you need it, or you can cut it all up, cure all the individual pieces. So these are pre-cut skeins. So I cut these all into little chunks ahead of time and then cured them. And that's what I'm going to do with these ones also. The other thing that you can do is just cure the whole skein. And if it's nice and loose, like these ones are reasonably loose to where I could shake it in and really get it in there really well, and I could cure the whole thing without like missing it in the middle. These were giant king salmon skeins that were pretty tight and fresh, then I wouldn't want to do that. The middles would be rotten. It would be bad news. Okay, so when you cure the whole skein all at once, this is what you end up with, is this big old blob. This is like Jello consistency to a little bit harder, depending on how much cure was on that individual chunk. So this is kind of convenient because you just cut off a chunk and it's a nice glob that kind of stays balled together really well. You have to cure it a lot heavier if you're doing it this way to ensure that you're curing the whole thing, so you kind of end up with this brick. It's really not my favorite, but it actually works pretty good. So this time I'm going to go ahead and cut them all up ahead of time into chunks. So for that, get this guy over here, get my scissors out, wipe my hands off a bit because I'm already a huge mess. But if you don't like to get messy, too bad. It's going to be messy. Okay, so I got my scissors. I'm just going to start at the tail with this one because there's a little hunk hanging off, and that's going to be a chunk. So that's a good small size chunk of skein, you know. I don't really want to go that much smaller, because if you're going to go any smaller than that, you might as well just be tying spawn bags. So there's one. There's 2. Now, things are getting thicker. So, I've got this open end of the skein, and then this is the skein part of the skein, the skin, that's kind of holding it all together. Usually what I do is it's going to be cylindrical shaped, you know, so I just stay with that shape and cut off little hunks at a time and improvise as you go. What you don't want to do is like cut this way, because then you end up just cutting a bunch of loose eggs. They're going to end up being all stringy instead of chunky. You want them chunky. So these ones are going to end up being bigger just because of the way I'm cutting them. Cut them to be smaller later, and that's actually kind of easier to do after they're cured. Okay, now I'm going to turn it sideways and cut this piece off that's hanging. So that's its own little piece there. And continue back the way I was. I'm cutting these ones kind of big. because I have a ton of skein at this point, so I'm not really worried about wasting it. I'd rather waste a big chunk drifting it for a fish and let it go bad. And I really only kept this particular hen because I accidentally killed her. Otherwise, at this point, I'm releasing all of my hens until I start to get some boot hens, because I'm going to need some loose eggs for tying spawn bags for the steelhead season. These are really just for catching more salmon. I do catch steelhead on skein, but mainly skein is more of a salmon bait. I catch rainbow trout and brown trout on skein too. It's really the same thing as a spawn bag. It's just a different method. You have to attach it to the hook differently. But a skein puts off so much more scent in the water. Even after you drift it for a while and all your eggs fall off, you still have a hunk of flesh that's scented. And I catch stuff on just the hunk of flesh that's left over. Especially little creek chubs and little tiny trout and stuff, they'll eat that up. It smells good, it looks good. If it smells good and it looks good and it's being presented well, they're not going to look at it and be like, oh, that's not an egg, that's just a hunk of skin. Nope, they're going to be like, that's a tasty thing floating by and I want to eat that before it gets away from me. Before the next guy grabs it. There's one dead egg right there. Only one. The whole thing. Looks funky. I don't know how well this will show up, this egg, but you can see it's got a nice little egg spot, a little yolk in the middle. It's otherwise transparent. So when you're buying beads and you see those transparent natural orange color ones with a brighter orange dot, that's why they make them that look like that, because that's what a real salmon egg looks like at this point in its process. So had I caught this fish sooner, they wouldn't look like that. If you catch them later, they look even different, more developed, and they come apart from the skein and become loose. So that's why there's all sorts of different colors of beads and stuff when people are fishing, because eggs change color over time, and different species have different colored eggs. And as eggs are in the water and deteriorate, they change color and fade to yellow, chartreuse, or white. And that's why like a white bead can work well, because it just looks like an egg that's been floating around for a long time. It's dead, it's still got nutritional value for the fish, so they're still going to seek that out. And they know what those look like, they've seen them before, so when you put one in front of them, that's why beads work. These work because of the massive amount of scent that they put off. You don't really necessarily have to flawlessly drift this in front of a fish to get the fish's attention. If there's a fish nearby, they're going to be like, whoa, I smelled dinner. And as soon as they start sniffing towards it, they're going to see it because it's a big old hunk floating down. And they're like, oh my goodness, this is a smorgasbord. Let's eat up. Okay, so I've got my skeins all skewered up. I've got my skeins all cut into reasonable little hunks. So now we're going to give it the procure. I've got the orange. I've got the UV glow. This turns out pink. I think I'm going to go with the pink. So this stuff is purple but turns pink when it connects with the egg and the moisture. Okay, so the other thing about this, when you put this stuff on your eggs, it's in a way, drying them out. It's kind of dehydrating them. So it's going to pull a bunch of moisture out of the eggs and firm them up. It doesn't really shrink them. I don't know how that works exactly. I'm not into the science of it all that much. But, so I'm just going to kind of clump them together. And then I'm going to sift this on as evenly as I can. The only reason I decided not to go with the orange is that sometimes that orange ends up turning green. So this is a purple that turns pink. Love that. Nothing wrong with that. But that orange, when it turns green, is kind of gross. And you can tell by looking at this one. There's that little green hue to it. I just don't like it. It just kind of grosses me out. I already have a lot of orange eggs too, because last season I did pretty much all of them in orange until, well, I used the whole one of these up. This is the second one I have gotten. But after getting this, I like this one better, the UV glow. I haven't really tried using it at night yet. That could be a thing. So, I'm going to leave these like this for a bit. I'm going to come back to them later. I'm just letting them soak some of that in. I'm going to kind of sift some of this excess that got away from it in there and just kind of let that all soak in. And then I'm going to come back, I'm going to flip these over and coat the other side. But I'm just going to give them a little time first to soak that stuff in. How long? A few minutes. I could do it right now. I mean, I could just take these, start flipping them, you know. So I guess that's what I'm going to do, because I already started. You can let them soak in. You cannot. Sometimes also, if I feel like I didn't coat them as well as I wanted to, you can always just dump more in the bag that I throw them into. But as you can see, I flip these over, and they are very much still orange on the other side. So that's why I do it this way. This is the messier way of doing it. My fingers are very purple and will remain pretty purple for the rest of the day, despite washing. So rubber gloves is a great idea. I've thought about it many times. I just haven't bothered to grab some from the store. Plus, it's fun to explain to people why your fingers are all purple. They're like, hey, what have you been doing? Killing Smurfs or something? I'm like, no, man. Curing fish eggs. They're like, huh? Like, it's a fishing thing. Okay. So, I'm going to just do the same thing to the other side. Put it on nice and heavy. Might as well use up the rest of what I have here. This isn't going to be enough for another batch. It's not. So I'm going to go kind of heavy. So, again, I think I touched on this earlier, but the heavier you go, the heavier the consistency is. So, I went really heavy on this batch. This was kind of a test batch. Kind of just wanted to see, like, what would happen. You know, live and learn. That's how you figure things out. Experimenting. You can only take other people's advice so much. You gotta do it yourself and learn from your mistakes. Figure out what worked for you, what didn't. So, this is the last batch that I did, the most recent batch that I did. And I've been fishing with these. These eggs were looser than this batch here, so these ones are a little loose, but, you know, if they're stringy, like, if you cut them and they're not, like, perfect balls, like this one is not a perfect ball, this is like a ball and another tiny little ball together. So I just kind of sandwiched those two balls together and that makes a ball. And then when I put it on the my egg loop, I just make sure that that cinches it all together so it's not like dangling and falling apart. You want it as tight of a little ball as you can. The tighter it is, the less likely it is to fall apart or shred to bits when you hit logs and rocks and things with it. Okay. So this time I'm actually going to let these sit for a little bit. So I'll be back in like 5 minutes to check these out, see how they look, figure out if I need to add a little more cure, what we got to do. I'm just kind of eyeballing it based on my experience. I have a feeling I'm going to flip and add a little more, throw them in the back. So we'll be back in 5. Okay, I'm back. Let's see what we got. So if I peel this layer up, you can see this is all soaking through. That's that moisture being drawn out of the eggs like I talked about. I'm just going to kind of stir them up. These are actually looking pretty good. Use a little more cure. Just a little bit. Loose eggs there. I'm just going to throw the rest of what I got on here. These should be nice and firm because I'm curing them pretty heavily. You don't have to go this heavy. But like I said, not enough for another batch, so use that up. And try out these a little firmer than the last batch and see if I like them better that way or not. And yeah, I'm just going to let these sit here for a little bit longer, and then I'm just going to throw them on the Ziploc bag and throw them in the refrigerator with all my other eggs. I've got a mini fridge just packed full of eggs right now. So, I am good for a while. So, like I said, I won't be harvesting another hen probably until I know the eggs are nice and loose. So if I get one that's maybe half spent or something, or looking pretty loose, some raggedy ones, keep a couple of those for some eggs. Just tie up some spawn bags, and I'll walk you guys through that process when I get there as well. So until then, thanks for watching, and good luck fishing. Catch you guys later.